How can you hear me, and how are you, mate?
I'm numb to it all. I wasn't expecting a result tonight, because at the minute I'm not really expecting a result at all. To be honest, the one thing that I want to say more than anything is KULUSEVSKI and Dom Solanke showed everything this Tottenham team should be about. The work rate, the desire, the passion. These are just, basics, right? Let's take everything away for a second. All of the sort of misplaced passes and the football side, the mentality stuff, just at the very, very basics. If you lack, ability, at the very least, work hard, give everything, show passion, show you care.
Do you not think that was happening in the first half? Then you're saying that the players on the pitch. Do you think it was that they weren't able to work hard because of fatigue, or they don't have the confidence to work hard? What do you think it is?
I think probably a combination of both. I mean, let's no hiding from the fact that the players are being run into the ground at the minute. The squad is threadbare, as it is pretty much every season when we end up with an injury crisis. We never have the luxury that a team like Chelsea has this season. But what I'm seeing is just a different level from players like KULUSEVSKI and Solanke. KULUSEVSKI, I think, is backing it up with goals and assists as well. Solanke getting, some goals recently as well. That should be the standard. These players could learn a lot from that. The more I see KULUSEVSKI, the way I saw his post-match interview there, it looked like he was putting on a front, and he looked furious when he walked away. I mean, that for me is, I'd like to see someone like that as our captain. I'm not seeing that from Sonny at the minute. When things are really getting tough, I'm not seeing him being animated and trying to G people up. So, that's something that I thought was a positive. I want players to learn from that. I feel terrible for Archie Gray. I mean, 18 years old, playing at centre-back.
How did you think he did? I
think he really struggled in the first half. I thought he grew into it a little bit more. I don't think the system helps a young player like that who's filling in. But look, ultimately, everyone's having to do a bit of a job at the minute. But as much as the injuries, I've alluded to, that's a big problem. Tonight's not about injuries. This is a team that is so poor. This Rangers side is so poor that they're third in the Scottish League.
They did just beat Nice 4-0 away, didn't they, in the Europa League? That was a pretty good result.
They did. But again, Nice is a team that, if Spurs are dropping points to Nice, these are teams we shouldn't be dropping points to.
Right.
And of course they're going to get the crowd up for it. It's Scottish versus English affair. It's something that doesn't happen all too often anymore, but at the same time, this is a team that, Rangers didn't have their strongest 11 out, I don't think. I think they had a couple of players on the bench as well. So, and they're competing on all fronts. I know that the level of opposition is not as good in Scotland, but it doesn't come down to injuries why we didn't beat Rangers. We didn't beat Rangers because the players that were on the pitch weren't good enough. We're giving the ball away too cheaply. That desire, that passion wasn't quite there. And when Solanke and KULUSEVSKI and Bergvall, nonsense yellow card, by the way.
Awful.
It's ridiculous. But when those substitutions came on, it made a real difference. But we can't afford to keep relying on substitutes to bail us out. Fraser Forster was magnificent again today.
He was.
Southampton, it's going to be another homecoming game, another, game where it'll be an interesting reception for Forster. We can't keep relying on him as much as we are.
So, Josh, you're saying it's not because of the injuries. I understand that. So where does the blame lie for, especially that first half performance?
To be honest, I'm loath to say the manager, because I don't think any coach in football is going to instruct a player to give the ball away as cheaply and easily as we were. Just not being aware of the situation. I mean, Timu, as I like to call him, Timu Werner. Everything's cheap and crappy from him. He was terrible. Basuma, I could be really expletive about how he plays, but I'll refrain from that. He just looks, everything is far too relaxed, far too slow. Bentancur was the one setting the tempo for us. He was probably the only one that first half that played genuinely well.
Yeah.
and I suppose it's one of those that every time Rangers had the ball, they looked like they could do something. Every time we had the ball, we didn't look really that threatening. I don't think that's on the coach. I think that's on players. I think the players are completely shot of confidence. They're worn down. They have been run to the ground, but these are the types of games where these players should be looking at it, rubbing their hands and saying, great opportunity against a very poor side to put wrongs to rights. And they didn't do that. Rangers were the ones that turned up.
Josh, is it down to the coach that Spurs, in every game I watch them, have no interest in defending their back post? And today we've conceded another goal from a cross where we don't try and stop the cross at source, and it just easily floats to the back post. And it's it's a good finish, but a relatively easy chance.
Yeah. Do you know what? It was frustrating, but you got to praise Rangers. I mean, what a ball from Tavernier, and it was a very good finish as well. To be honest, it was a good goal. I think, yes, the high line doesn't help. The system is always going to leave us exposed to that. But I think we had far bigger issues than just that one individual moment, which, give Rangers their dues. It was quality.
Okay, let's just go through a couple of the comments together. Here we said, Matthew Ball, thank you for writing in. Says, Spurs have struggled in Europe against all three of the better teams we've played. It's not good enough. And is predictable. Keeping Ange around is only prolonging the inevitability. What do you have to say about that? I'll get that up on screen.
I'm not entirely convinced by Ange. Definitely not. But the overwhelming feeling I have is that we sack Ange and then what? We're going to have another manager who still has players that aren't good enough, still has a squad that's not good enough, not deep enough. We still got January in the summer. Okay, we bring in a new manager. We may get one or two players in January. Probably not going to make drastic change to the squad and the quality of it. Then in the summer, are we going to have the same conversation that we have every summer, which is, did we do enough? Is the squad deep enough? Are we still 2-3 players short? And then the form, you have your new manager bounce, so everything's forgotten about. It's all right. And then it goes. We end up in this situation again next season, and we're having the same conversation. I just think it's rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
So to be honest, as much as it's really painful right now, and there are definite faults in Ange's system, the only way, we need to just let him run its course. We need to let him get the players he needs, back him, give him the time, I think, and then see where we're at. And if it fails spectacularly, at least we tried that differently. And, there's other reasons why it has failed. But at the same time, if we lose against Southampton, I'm not sure if Ange is helping himself. He might be digging his own grave, regardless of what I think.
Yeah, you got a few people agreeing with you there. Joe, though, says it will become more and more inevitable if we drop out of the cups. Kamal Nagra, thank you for your message. We can't sack Ange. Give him more time, I guess. We need more squad depth. Josh, obviously, you're a journalist, aren't you? You know exactly how hard it is for teams to get players in without having to pay a premium this January. Can you envisage?
It doesn't work. That's the reality, right? And Spurs can try to work this magical other way. Our recruitment and scouting is not as good as Brighton, so we're not agile enough to get the best young talent. We're getting. Can I just? Sorry
to interrupt, Josh. Can I just play devil's advocate to that a little bit? Obviously, Brighton's recruitment over the last 5 years has been amazing, but what I would say is there is a bit of a difference, isn't there? Where if Spurs go to the Paraguayan league and get in a Paraguayan youngster, the pressure at Spurs means that a lot of these players aren't ever thrown straight in, whereas at Brighton, there's less pressure, so they're able to be thrown straight in. So that's the only thing I'd say, because obviously I do think about it as well. I'm like, well, why don't we just do what Chelsea did and nick all the Brighton backroom staff, go over to Paraguay or Brazil or wherever? But there is an added pressure there.
No, you're definitely right. But my point is, Brighton has a reputation for being so spot on with its recruitment that they can go to places like Paraguay and find an Enciso, or they can go to places and teams that no one's ever heard of and sell a player for 100 million, right? But we don't want to be that club, right? That's exactly my point. We don't want to be that club selling players for 100 million to Real Madrid. We're all fed up of seeing players go to Bayern and Real Madrid. We want players to stay, and we want to be a team that competes at the top. There's no team above us or team that wins stuff, bar Leicester, that one freak season that I don't think we'll ever see happen again. Look at what Chelsea's doing. Look at what Liverpool have done. And I know the net spend is, similar with Liverpool, but
no, but it's wages. It's wages.
Wages, 100%. But they sold Coutinho, and then they went and bought the best goalkeeper on the market in Alisson, the best centre back on the market in Van Dijk. Are Spurs doing that? No. Arsenal, City, these clubs are acting in a different way. So the way that Spurs are acting in the transfer market, the way that Daniel Levy likes to, here's a top quality player. We want £15 million for him. This is a youngster. Kvaratskhelia, for example, because this actually happened. No, too expensive. £60 million for a player that we all know will improve us overnight. Or, we never say 100%, but 99.9% certain he's going to improve us overnight. No, let's offer £20 million. It doesn't work. We either have to join the other top clubs and act like them, or we're never going to be that. It's as simple as that. We can try all we want and do the bare minimum to get into a European spot, Europa League, Conference League, whatever you want to call it. The only way I think from now that we can genuinely go that other level is if we do something we've done before. So hopefully the board do something different. I doubt they will.
So I speak to this brilliant guy, Yori, on my videos each week, and he says that basically the key thing is that Daniel Levy needs to keep Spurs in their AAA credit rating. And the reason why he keeps them at the reason why he keeps them as the 6th highest wage spending team is so that he can keep that, so that then he can continue to, do the kind of construction work for the hotels, for instance, and get the loans and get the interest on the loans that we have on the stadium, etc., etc. So, obviously that's Yori's opinion. I don't know. I'm not a money person. I don't really understand, but that is, a defense, not a defense for it, but that is a reason for it. Anyway, I'm just going to go into some more comments while you're here, because I'm enjoying talking to you, Josh. Andy Alexander says, what top player would come to Spurs? Dan Lynch, thank you for writing in, says, Levy ultimately failed Ange in the summer transfer window. How many times have we seen this? Let's not look beyond that. We act like a Brighton or Brentford with the infrastructure. The stadium build was supposed to be a game changer. We're not playing in the big boy court. Mentality comes from the top. False promises from Levy, and now we have a new hotel to look forward to. I just want to say one thing about this, and it's something I've said a lot in my videos, and I'll say it here because I don't think I've said it on Chris's watch-alongs yet, which is when Arsenal moved into the Emirates, that was 2006. And the first year that Arsenal spent any big money at all after moving into the Emirates was 2013 when they bought Mesut Ozil. And then the first time that they properly went big and actually became like one of the biggest spenders was when they bought Nicola Pepe for £75 million, which I think was 2018, 2019. It was a long time after. It is not, I know we've got, this big £1 billion loan and we don't have to pay it off for 50 years and the interest rates are good, but nobody can tell me that stadium build hasn't affected us the same way that it affects Arsenal. And the reason Arsenal are now able to get all the money is because they sold all of the flats around the Emirates. They sold all of the flats in Highbury, and they are making the money through their stadium for years, and they basically paid it off. They also obviously had the huge Emirates stadium naming rights deal, so they're further ahead when it comes to that. So all I'm saying is, devil's advocate, it's not quite as simple as, the stadium is making good revenue, so we can plow that back in. They have to find a way to keep the money men on board.
I can shoot that down pretty quickly, to be honest.
Go on then.
Spurs agreed a deal unlike any other for a stadium like this. I was reading into the money behind it, and we're paying a set fee, something I can't remember the exact number, so I'm not going to quote them and be terribly wrong.
It's like 30 million a year, I think.
Exactly, until I think 2029, and then it's a smaller fee until 2050. The deal was done so brilliantly in a way that means Spurs would not have the same problems that Arsenal had moving into this. The whole deal was done to avoid that very problem. They looked at those lessons and they learned from those lessons. Hence why, props to Daniel Levy on that. So one thing I will praise him on is that stadium deal was magnificent. And now we're raking in
500 million a year from the stadium.
Millions and millions on concerts, on rugby, on NFL, on all these events, on the go-karting, you name it, all these conference events in the stadium, everything under the sun. The whole, if we can't afford around about 30 million a year, I think it was like 29 million a year or something. I think it was something like that. it might be wrong. Then there's a serious problem because we get that money in TV alone. We get that money times 3 or 4 in TV alone and in sponsorships. One sponsorship solves that problem overnight. So this,
but I don't, Josh, sorry to interrupt. I don't think I'm saying that we can't afford the 30 million a year. But what I'm saying is I don't think that having a 1.2 billion pound debt and being the most in-debt football club in the world is something that can just be talked away by we got a good interest rate on it. I think it must affect it in some way. And if it doesn't, and you're right and fine, then why do you think Daniel Levy won't spend now that he has the resources to spend with that revenue? Then what do you think, if he always said, it's because we don't have the stadium and now he does, why do you think he is unwilling to spend as much as, say, Chelsea, who spent £1 billion and don't have the stadium?
I think there's a couple of things. One, it's not entirely his money to spend.
No.
There's that.
Because the ENIC way is to spend sustainably, only spend what the club makes,
which is, in terms of FFP and all of that side of things, great stuff. We're the best run football club probably in the world in terms of financial stability and PSR. But what it also indicates is, and this is why they've been looking for a minority investor, is that basically, in my view, they're looking for a cash cow to come in and wherever they come from, be willing to just put crazy money into it. They don't want to spend what's theirs. I think they're far more motivated by the property portfolio, by the whole thing, which is why the stadium, the club, all the various bits of property are listed under different companies. There's about 30 or so companies that they're listed under. And I think that's all down to the fact that they're, very carefully managing that financial opportunity in the area of Tottenham. And I think that's also why they were interested initially in Stratford and the Olympic Stadium, because of that potential for the economic kind of growth of the area. And probably long term, they are going to look to sell up. I think that is what will probably happen through a minority investor. And then once they've made the money they can make, I think they want to cash in on an NFL team first. And that's probably what's keeping them there. But for me, it's always just felt like, and only Daniel Levy will be able to answer this, but it always feels like they want to do the bare minimum to ensure that we can get into Europe so that we can, which is why we spend some money. Not acting like we don't spend money. We spend a fair bit of money, but we spend about the 5th, 6th amount because it looks like they want to get into Europe to get the TV money, to get the sponsorships, to get the brand exposure, this, that, and the other, to keep things ticking for their other projects. It just doesn't seem like they are as interested in football. If they were really, truly interested in the football, where are the Bill Nicholson gates? There's no, other than the Golden Cockerel, there's not a huge amount inside the bowl itself that tells you this is Tottenham Hotspur. They can't even have THFC on the seats or anything like that. Little things that are quite insignificant, but to fans they mean an awful lot.
Yeah, good point.
It just feels like they're more interested in the next opportunity, the next investment, the brand growth. Hence why they've done this. I think why they've done this rebrand of the logo as well. I mean, it's yes, I understand the points they're making. It's more agile, it's more modern, but it also allows them to rebrand everything and sell a whole load of new merchandise.
Yeah. Let me just ask you one more question then. Josh, it's been a really great chat. Really enjoyed it. Daniel Levy is very open, as you said, about looking for this minority investment. Rumours that Amanda Staveley is trying to put something together or was trying to put something together. If Tottenham get this minority investment of, let's say, between £500 million and £1 billion, right? Are we suggesting that money would go straight into players and that's why Levy wants it, so that they, and actually I agree with everything you've said, really, because when ENIC took over as Spurs, the AEK Athens chairman, of whom ENIC they'd taken over AEK Athens before, said this won't be good for Spurs fans because this is a company who refused to spend any of their own money on it. So that's how it's been. I do kind of wonder whether ENIC have got to a bit of a point where actually Tottenham are becoming such an expensive asset that it's hard to see anyone paying £3 billion for Spurs down the line. But anyway, in terms of the short-term investment, the kind of Ineos-esque investment, is that something that Levy's looking for just so that he can kind of answer the fans and say, we are going to spend big?
Well, they are an investment group. I can't remember what ENIC actually stands for, but I think it's an investment corporation. So that says everything you need to know. I think so, but I think there's also another caveat to that. And the reason why I don't think the Staveley deal has happened, even though it looked like it could have happened very quickly, is we all saw how hands-on Staveley was at Newcastle and how brilliant I think she was actually at Newcastle as well. She was meeting with fans. She was, stopping and speaking to them as she was entering the stadium, being really visible, talking about how important it is to win.
Are you suggesting Daniel Levy doesn't do that?
No. Well, obviously, clearly that was never going to work out, was it? Daniel Levy, from everything that I seem to be hearing, and all the noises and everyone seems to have the same thought that Daniel Levy wants to remain chairman of the
That's
football.
Right.
And so it wouldn't work if Amanda Staveley came in with all this huge money. It would make sense, and I think fans would like to see her as the one that's doing that side of things, right? The face of the football. But we're going to need to somehow find a deal where a minority investor is happy to put all their money in, but allow Levy to remain chairman. It seems a little bit odd, and I think that's would make a deal very, very hard to do, unless it was okay, you're going to remain chairman for 5 years, but after 5 years, we're going to buy the whole club. Then that makes a little bit more sense. So I think there's a lot to it there, but I keep hearing the same thing about Daniel Levy wanting to remain on as chairman, adamant that he wants to carry on doing it. So I personally don't think he has a clue about football. So
it's interesting. Yeah, I agree, Josh. It's interesting as well because Daniel Levy has tried, I think, to appease the fans a bit by bringing in the likes of Scott Munn and obviously Johan Langer as well, saying, "Oh, I'm not involved in the football day to day." In which case, why would he need to stay on as chairman? I mean, other than the fact, he is part owner of the club. Of course, he's got a big percentage. His family do, but he could easily step away and say Amanda Staveley will be the Jim Radcliffe of this. But I think you're right. He's kind of unwilling to do that. And I think I'm afraid, I think if I'm putting myself in his shoes, it's because he's taken so much shit for 25 years that he's like, I'm not going to let someone else come in and fucking get this over the finish line. I want to be here for one fucking title or Champions League or something big, and then you can take it away.
It's an ego thing at this point now. I feel like I do agree. I feel like there's this element of he wants to stay there, maximize the growth of the club, get to a point where the club makes so much money. Because this is the thing, someone's just said in the comments actually about ENIC will sell for the right price. I can't remember the exact message, but I completely agree. But the asking price at the minute is madness. No. And they're asking that the price that they want is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen for a football club, because it's going to be not just that, it's going to be the stadium, it's going to be as a separate company, the club, all of the stuff that goes with it. I think it's tailor-made for American investment if the NFL stuff gets over the line. But that I think it all felt like an NFL team in London might be sooner rather than later. Now it seems that that's actually quite far away from happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like they're going to maximize it. He's desperate for something and someone to prove everyone wrong so that he can sit there and laugh at the fans who doubted him.
Okay, Josh, mate, I'm going to have to talk to some other people. That's been a great chat. Let the audience know where they can find your stuff.
At Josh UTV on X or Twitter.
Man, mate, try and
Thanks for having me on, mate.
Try and enjoy that draw. Have a good night.
You too.